3 in 1 week. Mm. Mm. Well, we should wrap up fairly soon. We don't have a lot going on today.
Next week.
Okay. Are the mics? Are we live?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Mics are good.
Okay. I don't think. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Commissioner?
Yeah, okay, perfect. All right, well, it's 11:30. We're gonna go ahead and kick off our pre-commission agenda. I just have, I'm sure Director, you're gonna talk about this, so I shouldn't talk too much about it, but I just wanna say thank you to our amazing staff and Commissioner Gold for attending the Idaho Business Review's Empowering Women Award Ceremony last week. And yeah, I just want to highlight just thanking also the commission and Director Wong for your leadership and making sure that we were the only local government entity at that award ceremony. And there was only one other state organization that was recognized out of a small pool of candidates. So all of our work is paying off in dividends by supporting the women in our workforce. So anyway, that's all I have. Any housekeeping items or questions about the agenda? Director Wong.
Okay, thank you. Madam President, Commissioners, good morning. And before we start into this presentation, I'd also like to thank all of you for the tremendous support you give this team. We have an amazing organization, and I was talk a little bit about this in a couple minutes, but I was out earlier to the maintenance rodeo practice session with two very special guests with me. And one of the questions was, you know, it's interesting, I don't see any women out here. And I said, well, you're not looking very closely, because just at that time in came one of our big front end loaders operated by a woman, grader operated by a woman, skidster operated by a woman, and then also, and they're just blown away. And we couldn't do that without your support when it comes down to who we bring on and the tremendous support you've given us for all the retention and recruiting operations that we have here. So on behalf of the entire organization, thank you. We greatly appreciate it. Commissioners, I'd like to start off with a short video made by our tremendous communications team, and I'll explain what it is here in a second. Now, in your mind's eye, I think you hear music going on. Well, as this is going, I'd like to let you know your safety team's 15th and 16th project is officially underway. Yesterday, signs were installed for the slow zone, increasing or decreasing the speed limit 20 miles per hour, and signs and systems were put in place to support the RFBs, and that will be activated this summer. Road closures are currently in place to accommodate the project, in addition to utility work by the city. We look forward to the project coming to a completion in August. Your communications team has put out information regarding the road closures and will continue communications efforts to educate the public on the change in speed limit and the proper way and use to comply with RFBs. So again, another tremendous initiative that the Ada County Highway District has had, and we really appreciate both yours and your support being on site as we work through this. But again, this is a first for that type of area for a slow zone. And so we'll see how the operations go from there. Commissioners, we have something very special to share with you. And without stealing any of Emma's thunder, I'd like to bring her up, and she's going to make a presentation I think you'll be very happy with. And when she's done, I have a couple extra things I'd like to share with you. And as you can see, we are partners in crime, right?
He's a little ahead of me in recovery.
Yeah, break a leg, Emma.
Already did. All right, let's just bring this up here. Okay. Perfect. All right. Good morning, Madam President, Commissioners. I'm Emma Bowers, Digital Media Coordinator in the World's Best Communication Department. I'm very excited to be here in front of you to speak about our new solution, C-Click Fix from Civic Plus. But first, I want to start with our goal of the project. We really want to make things easy on our residents to report issues and ask questions and just give their comments and feedback. But we're also responsible for ensuring a smooth operations on our side with our team members and make it a welcoming environment for them as well. So why is TELUS so important? TELUS is kind of like an extended front lobby. While our residents are out and about, they let us know what they're seeing on their commute, and often that means they can't come into the building, but they're welcome to. We need to provide a convenient way for them to contact us in a way that's best for them. And we want to also ensure that they can submit anonymously if they aren't comfortable for providing a name. We get about 5,000 messages from our residents each year. It was just over 5,000 in 2023. So it's very important that we're providing a space like TELUS with our best foot forward, a comfortable environment that looks good and works well and is efficient on our end for our team members. So some downfalls of our current system and why we need a new one. Right now it's through Laserfish, and Laserfish is really meant for data storage. It's not really meant for something like we're pushing it to use. It's a little clunky, and we're spending time trying to make something work that it doesn't meet all the needs of a growing county or a growing agency. So right now, everything goes through our front desk admin, and there can be a lot of duplication of efforts kind of here and through this process. So the TELUSes go from our front desk to a senior admin to sometimes another admin, and then sometimes to another team member. So there's a lot of steps that it goes through before it gets answered. So there should be some automation here. For example, if someone reports a pothole, it could just go straight to that yard rather than passing through 4 layers of admins before it gets to where it needs to be. Also, the mapping capabilities aren't quite there with our current system. We need a new one that provides an opportunity for GIS layers to push through those TELUSes in an automatic way, or not push them through at all, which I'll talk about later. TELUSes also sometimes end up sitting in people's inboxes at times while they're out of the office. And there's not really a way to prevent that from happening unless you know the schedule of 250 team members from that admin, which just isn't something that they should be responsible for. And we just need a system that will route it to a group rather than an individual, so our residents aren't waiting on an answer. And finally, we end up spending quite a bit of time reviewing tasks that need to be at other agencies, like the Idaho Transportation Department. So before I introduce you to Civic Plus, you may remember we were originally going to integrate with Granicus, who we're using for our Engage portal and our website, both of which are going very well. But with working with Granicus on a potential telesystem last year, it was determined the solution was outside of their expertise, particularly in the mapping capabilities, and it just didn't fit with what we wanted or needed. So those extensive GIS layers and shape files, there just was a mismatch there. And so instead of trying to make it work like we're trying to make it work with our current system, we decided to get our money back for that portion and go shopping again. Excuse me. So after multiple demos with a few companies, we determined that Civic Plus's C-Click Fix solution was best for our agency. Civic Plus specializes in local government, providing support for our needs and some of those nuances that come with government. Plus, when we were doing our demos, Civic Plus had their tech online, so we could ask questions straight to the source rather than always going through a salesperson. So I'll go through each of these bullet points, but we're really excited to take you through what Civic Plus can do. So I talked a lot about the mapping capabilities. I'm on the communications team, so I do have a GIS expert over here in case you have questions about that section. But I will do my best to tell you about this exciting portion. So right now, as I've stated, we have to respond to each and every report, even if it's not for our agency. So what we are able to do with C-Click-Fix is the resident will be able to put in a PIN or an address and the issue. And once those two things line up and it's determined based on those shapefiles and GIS layers that it is in our jurisdiction, it'll be pushed through to the correct group or admin. If the location and the issue don't match up, a message will be sent back to the resident or pop up on the screen in some way that it needs to be transferred, or give them the number of who they can contact instead, rather than us responding to each individual. So for example, a pothole on I-84 would just not go through the system and save up all of that time. Also, with GIS, we will have the option to geofence. It's a very fancy word that he'll be able to explain if you have questions on that. But it will send those issues to the correct yard based on the shapefiles and the layers that are put into place to Adams or Apple, U-Stick, and Cloverdale, and skip over those other layers and get through a lot quicker. For data and reporting, it's really important to us, and we've also heard from leadership that it's also important to them to have accurate and detailed reporting. So with our old system, it's quite a tedious process to put in the information and have something visually. This will be a lot more automated to show based on issue or location. So we'll be able to say, hey, how's Fairview doing? And then it will be able to show us what's going on Fairview in a certain amount of time. Or, hey, where did all the potholes from pothole days go? And we'll be able to see that a lot more visually and a lot quicker. And then our teams will be able to say, hey, we've been in that area 5 times over the last 2 weeks. Maybe that requires some different attention. So we do get duplicate teleses quite often about the same issue in the same location, especially around winter maintenance or pothole days. And that creates multiple records for our staff to work through. So we can allow the system to show residents a PIN that's already been placed by another resident, and they can follow along with that task instead of reporting it again. They can still report it again. There's nothing that will prohibit them from that, but there's that option that they can follow along instead. And right now, we also don't have the option for smooth back and forth between us and the resident. Sometimes we have to ask clarifying questions about a location or an issue, or ask for a visual or a picture. And with C-Click-Fix, the resident has the option to create an account, so we can have that back and forth. They can still submit anonymously, and we'll still do our due diligence, and just like we do now, and going to the area and fixing what we can. But right now, the process is, once that clarification is asked, the resident has to then basically create a new TELUS, and that's if they want to. C-Click-Fix also has what's called an Omni inbox, and it allows for the elimination of even more duplicate efforts. We get questions in through emails, the app reports right now, and this will allow residents to write in via text, email, an app, which comes with this system, or they can call it in, and all of those things become a TELUS. So we're able to check multiple platforms at one time rather than checking them all individually. And hopefully social media becomes integrated with that later on. So how fast are we moving? It's about 12 to 18 weeks for implementation. That includes the work of the ArcGIS and the shapefiles and the layering. And it also includes single sign-on. Single sign-on allows us to have smooth logins for our ACHD team members, and it also provides extra security into the system. And pricing. So we're very excited about the year one discount. The year one discount is about $67,000. So we were at the end of their quarter, so they were very motivated for a sale. But we are also a unique agency with out all of the services of a city or county. So because we didn't have as many services as one of those agencies, we were able to grab a discount that way as well. We were also able to kind of bundle some of those services like the single sign-on and the GIS integration. So the bulk of the cost would have been at the front end of this project had we not gotten that discount. So it was very significant for us. The annual recurring cost is just over $68,000 plus a 5% uplift, and that's very typical in this environment. And I'll stand for any questions.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yeah, Emma, is that I don't understand the size of this particular program or software, but you said 68,250 is kind of common.
Sorry, Madam President, Commissioner, the 5% uplift is typical of subscription services like this, not necessarily that 68,000.
Oh, okay. So
Sorry.
It would not be the 68,250. It would be a 5% on top of 45.
It would be a 5% on top of that 68. So that originally it would have been a price of what the 112,000, and then it would have been the recurring cost of about half that. But because of the discount, we were able to do the 45. But the negotiations, that we got the discount at the front end of the project rather than throughout.
So, and I understand that it makes things easier for our staff. Have we done any kind of analysis as to whether or not this particular cost offsets the personnel costs for the way we do it today?
I don't have
time and everything.
Madam President, Commissioner, I don't have those specifics, but I'm sure that we could get something for you.
Madam President and Commissioner Goldthorpe, just to answer your question on the 68,000, we did have IT on with us during all of the demos, and that was one of my questions was, is this typical, is this fair? And Andy was very pleased with the price, and similar solutions that we've had in the past have been much more.
Oh, yeah, so I've watched those in some of our budgets.
Yeah, so we did a lot of finagling and a lot of negotiating, and he was very happy with our end price on that.
Okay. Commissioner Hanson?
Yeah, Madam President, and thanks. This looks great. One of the most valuable aspects of TELUS is reading them, because it's set up so that we as commissioners see them coming in, and then we see the response. It's one of the most valuable ways of informing us about what's going on, issues that are arising. Is that still going to be, I hope that still exists under this so that we can continue to get this constant flow of information about, what residents in our area we're representing have issues with, and how our staff has responded to those.
Sure, Madam President, Commissioner, I hope that it's even more valuable because you'll see what we're doing, and you will still see those, and we'll just make sure that they're pushed to you as well. And with the reporting, I hope that you'll see more visuals as well, and that will be easier to visualize.
So those are in real time, the same time. It's not like later on we get a report.
No. Okay. The reporting may be later, run a certain amount of times per month or however is determined as best, but it would act a lot like it does now for you seeing it.
Great. I do like it spread out so that it's like my accomplishment for the day is going through all the TELUSes. And believe us, during pothole week, we had a lot of TELUSes to sort through. And the only ones I really focused on, obviously, were those in the area I was familiar with.
Sure.
Do we need a new app? Will people now need a new app to download with this new vendor in order to do it using their smartphones?
Yes, Madam President, Commissioner, yes, they would need a new app. The current app is no longer supported.
Right.
So we hope that it's even easier to use.
And so, but it's integrated, the app, or if someone chooses to do it by email, but also there's a way if someone does it the old-fashioned way from my generation and on and just picks up the phone and somebody answers the phone, which is great because that happens here, and they can then enter it into the system. Is that all? So regardless of the way a resident chooses to send that information, it gets into the system.
Yes, Madam President, Commissioner, any way that our residents are reaching out to us, it would be input into this system so everyone can see it all at the same time. And we can check everything at once.
And of course, we still need humans. And that's the one thing we get frustrated with, mostly with our insurance companies or the hospitals or wherever. You go through these loops of automated, press this button. Mm-hmm. So the ease with which people can go, okay, this is a little more complicated than these categories. I just want to talk to a human. They can get too fast, whether it's, okay, I'm looking at my app. I just want to call, click. And that's still, is that going to be?
Yes, Madam President, Commissioner, we're not taking away the human aspect. It's the very best thing that we do is we put in that personal touch. We still need all of our people to respond in that way. This just makes that process that much faster and just gets to them quicker rather than taking out, any human that would be touching that.
Yeah, I think that's where we get the most kudos is when someone has sent something in and somebody from here calls them for a little more information, and they're like, wow, somebody called me. Nobody even at my hospital's ever called me. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on them. The last one is the other agencies. Are any other agencies in the Valley using this vendor? And if you mentioned that, this is kind of unique because, we're separate from the city. And so if people have transportation related issues, but they also might have something that overlaps with some of the other services that a local government's providing. Is there a way of integrating into what they're doing?
Madam President, Commissioner, I'm not exactly sure what services they're using, but we would do our best to make sure they're getting that message in either our communications with them or getting the resident to them. I can certainly find out that if another agency were to purchase SeeClickFix, if it can integrate in that way, but we would also want to ensure that our information is protected and that they're not in our system at the same time. So I can certainly find out for you, but we think that this is a good compromise in getting them to the right agency.
Yeah, that'd be great. As you know, that defines what a new resident of our county is, because they call City Hall first, and City Hall says, guess what? You live in a very unique county.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Commissioner McKinney?
Thank you. Emma, just kind of to follow up on a question that Commissioner Hansen talked about. So is it going to be the case that in every situation where a voice call is made to report a problem, they're going to talk to a person, or is there also an aspect of this system that will be automated to create a text message based on a voice call, or is it always going to be that they get a person?
Madam President, Commissioner, they would still talk to a person.
Okay.
But it would just be a little bit more simple for our people to input their information and then connect that TELUS to that resident, especially if they already have a profile. So we're still not taking away the human voice calls. There are options that we can look at for like a chatbot feature eventually, but it's just something that we're exploring that would be more automated.
Okay. Then back kind of on the cost questions that Commissioner Goldthorpe brought up, is there a current software cost that's going to be offset by the cost of this new system? That is to say, you showed us some cost numbers. Is there current things that will go away because of that, and this takes those place, and what's the comparison there?
Yes, Madam President, Commissioner, I can certainly get that to IT. I think Ken has an answer for you. I apologize.
Madam President, Commissioners, we are currently using our TELUS system as part of the Laserfish system currently. So we won't be getting rid of any other software. This will be an additional package.
Okay, so this is
the features that this offers are a lot more flexible and user-friendly than the TELUS system that we have now.
Okay. Then let me follow up with kind of, again, what Commissioner Goldthorpe addressed. As far as the cost is concerned, he asked about, how do we compare, you know, how much are we gonna save in labor and employee time? Can we get that kind of information before a decision is made, or is this just gonna go through the process and we won't see it again before it's put in place?
Madam President, Commissioner, this is informational that we have made an agreement with Civic Plus. But as to the labor question, we hope that by the time being saved, that our admins will be able to focus on other projects that we have frequently asked questions that we need help with inputting into the system. There's going to be a lot for them to do to set it up and keep it up to date in order to make it easier on the front end.
Right.
So I hope that answers.
Then I guess what I'm asking is, and like I say, Commissioner Goldthorpe asked for this, something akin to a cost benefit analysis would be helpful. I'd like to see that, just to see, you know, here's what we think we're going to save with this, and here's what the cost is.
Sure, Madam President, Commissioner, I can certainly draft something up for you of the amount of messages that are being sent through, especially through all those layers. I think that 5,000 messages number is very significant, and I can only expect that to grow, especially if eventually this integrates with social media. We get hundreds and thousands of messages and comments that we're responding to that will hopefully make this even easier on our team, and we have a very long list that we would like to get to. So I can definitely see the benefit.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gold?
Yeah, thanks, Madam President. So just to clarify, is every resident report publicly viewable on the map or whatever? Can everybody see those?
Madam President, Commissioner, I imagine that would be a lot of pins. So we're still working through exactly what would be available on there. There's a lot of filters that can be kind of selected on the back end. So we're still working through exactly what that will look like.
Okay. But you had mentioned if somebody in, you know, a neighborhood went to report a pothole or something that had already been reported, they would be able to see that, or?
Yes. So Madam President, Commissioner, so those pins would be shown. We're just working through, are those all at the same time? Like the more they zoom in, the more pins they see. Okay. That's definitely a tech question that we're working through.
Gotcha. And then, so does this create the opportunity to aggregate information and kind of filter that to help inform, like if a commissioner wanted to, you know, find out if there's a kind of persistent problem in a specific area, could that be filtered and a report generated for that purpose?
Madam President, Commissioner, we're very excited about the reporting. Definitely a new step for us on how exactly they are generated and what we can filter and what works for us and for you. So I think it'll be interesting to kind of select those, and we know that we can filter by issue and location. So I hope that answers your question.
Great, thank you.
Emma, I just want to say thank you and Shandy and the team. Thank you, because this has been something that I know, I mean, at least I've been talking about with you and ever since I was elected, and how important this program is, but how of a missed opportunity, like all of those bullets that you talked about was like totally on the nose. So I just see, I mean, I would echo Commissioner Goldthorpe's thoughts, and when you, that's 68,000, like that's a drop in the bucket compared to like all of the different, the consolidation components, the efficiency components, not to mention the time that it takes for constituents to navigate the existing system, can be really finicky. And so I just was going to ask a couple questions about, one, I want to emphasize the value of the reporting for the commission. I definitely think at least a more thorough annual report would be fabulous on like the benchmarks, not just how is the tool working, but, and that needs to be a component, of course, is evaluating like how is it actually being rolled out. But just those updates on follow through with staff, the types of reports that we were getting versus also by location, because that could give us as commissioners some insight as to whether or not that there wouldn't be a problem in certain parts of our district or our county, but hey, this is maybe where we need to do more public outreach about the tool and, engage the public more so that they can use it more frequently. So I think that would be a huge asset to us as commissioners. And then obviously, as you guys figure out ways to do more quarterly or quicker time reports, that would be helpful to know. And then I wanted to ask too, the idea about the closeout or know where constituents are in the process of getting their ask completed. We haven't taken up the traffic calming policy or ordinance for a little bit. It's been kind of shelved for now, but I don't mean to put you on the spot, Ryan, but I think, this knowing kind of how this software was going to keep folks apprised of where things were at and things like closing, I think that there could be some potential connection with the traffic calming piece, since a lot of those folks complete a TELUS to begin with, and that gets the process started. So just wanted to put that on your radar, that it would be helpful to know how that can be incorporated into existing manuals or whatever, and making sure that process is applied throughout the agency, potentially, if that's a good fit. So I just see that as another concern from constituents. So anyway, I know we're at time, but thank you, Emma. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Emma, I'd like you to know you received a 9.2 with a bullet.
Thank you, sir.
Be glad you weren't Joe Show, and it might have been a 9.2 with a flat tire.
Thank you.
Madam President, based on time, I'd like to defer till after your public communications with the rest of the comments I have for the commission.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's 12:01. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please join us in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thanks for joining us in person and online today. We have heard from IT that folks that wish to testify online, there is a hang up virtually. So if you can, just send a message to Stacy if you would like to testify, and we will defer that item. We only have one item on the agenda, so apologies for the technical difficulty at this time, but we are going to be working through it. Okay, commissioners, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which that item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless otherwise noted. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Madam President, I
Commissioner McKinney.
move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Aye.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Thanks, commissioners. All right, moving on to our regular agenda. We just have one regular agenda item. It is the authorization order of condemnation for State Street and Park Lane, project 317044, parcel 2223. It's the Plantation View Village LLC. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Welcome, Mr. Serdar.
Thank you, Madam President. Commissioners, for the record, David Serdar, right-of-way supervisor for Ada County Highway District. As said, this is a condemnation decision briefing and public hearing. The condemnation is on the State Street and Pierce Park project. The owner is Plantation View Village LLC. This project is a part of our 2024 to 2028 integrated 5-year work plan, and construction is scheduled to begin in fiscal year 25. Here is a vicinity map of the location. I'll put that there. As you can see, this is the property we're looking at. The golf course is right here. So to kind of orient you, this is on the south side of the road. And it's just a small strip for sidewalk expansion in this section. This is the site map. The right-of-way acquisition is a permanent easement of 1,267 square feet, which is in the red. The temporary construction easement, which is in this green right there, is 1,774 square feet. This property is zoned commercial, and the property size before and after the acquisition actually remains the same because this is a permanent easement, is the interest that the district is acquiring. ACHD has been attempting to negotiate with this property owner since February of 2023. ACHD over this time attempted contact through mailing and calling. It was not until we sent out a second 10-day letter in February of 2024 that ACHD was able to get communication with the property owner. Since that time, ACHD has had multiple conversations with the property owner. Concerns that the property owner were related to the valuation of fencing and landscaping. ACHD has worked to resolve those concerns and presented those to the property owner via email, but the property owner has not responded to us since. Due to time constraints on this project, it is staff recommendation that the Commission declare the acquisition area necessary for the project as right-of-way and public use, authorize the staff to proceed with the condemnation action, and execute an order of condemnation for the acquisition area. Just as a reminder, we always continue to negotiate. We will be actively, both us in right-of-way and the legal group will be active in negotiating with the property owner from here on out, even before those actions are filed with the court. And I will remain standing for any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner McKinney.
Madam President, thank you. Dave, just to clarify, in this particular project, the reason for the additional acquisition relates to you mentioned the sidewalk and so on. And it's clear from the aerial photos that sidewalk already exists, but this project, just to clarify, this project is widening the roadway and therefore moving the curb gutter and sidewalk a little bit further away from center line. Is that correct?
Oh.
Madam President, members of the Commission, for the record, Justin Lucas, the Deputy Director of Planning and Projects here at the Highway District. I don't mean to jump up here, but when project questions come up specific to design, typically that fall outside of Dave's purview, we try to get up here, and just in case there's follow-on questions, we can respond to those. So Commissioner McKinney, Madam President, the project includes a multi-use pathway. So we are actually removing the current curb, gutter, and sidewalk. We are installing a multi-use pathway along with the additional lanes that we're installing on State Street, and that's what requires the additional right-of-way.
Okay, so it's both the widening of the roadway and the new curb gutter and multi-use pathway that are the reason for the additional right-of-way.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. That is my only question. Thanks.
Any other question? Oh, Commissioner Gold.
Yeah, does this impact the property, the parking, or any other aspects of the property?
Madam President, Commissioner Gold, no, once the project is complete, the property essentially remains the same. There is some potential, some minor landscaping impacts. There are some impacts, but the basic function of the property as it relates to parking and access remains the same.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, thanks, Dave. Is the property owner present?
Madam President, Commissioners, I don't believe they are.
Okay. Okay. All right, well then I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing. Commissioners,
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney,
I move that we approve the order of condemnation for the State Streets and Parcel Lane Project 317044, parcels 22 and 23 of the Plantation View Village LLC.
Second that.
it's been moved and second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Commissioners. Thanks, Dave. All right, moving on to public communications. Is there anyone in the public that would like to address the commission at this time? Come on up.
No, if you have
Thank
something
you
to
for-
say, don't leave. Yeah.
Just state your name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Commission. My name is Valerie Slavin, and I live at 5806 North Duxbury Place in Garden City, Idaho, excuse me. I'm here this afternoon, to not be a negative citizen, but to voice some concern and dissatisfaction with a reply that I received from ACHD staff this past week regarding the continued standing of political signs in ACHD right-of-ways. I find that the response I received from staff, and again, I appreciate their prompt response, was that though these signs are definitely political signs, and it is after the most recent Republican Party caucus on March 2nd, that the signs wouldn't be removed because there is going to be an upcoming election on May 22nd or May 21st. Doing my research, I understand that political signs should be removed 48 hours after an election. And these signs are in right-of-ways. I've been driving around town, and I've seen these signs. And I just think that the response that there is an upcoming election really doesn't satisfy my concerns about these signs. I just wanted to make this aware to you, and I think it's just something that just seems a little unrealistic and unfair. There is no legislation to, signs can be put up so many days before an election here in Idaho, but I just wanted to stand and make my concerns known to the commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Ma'am,
Yes.
I just want to disclose, we are not related. I did not pay you to come to say this. I am notorious for hating political signs. Some of the cities, like for instance, Meridian, has an ordinance that actually allows political signs up 60 days in advance. And there was one candidate for Congress that stuck his up 90 days in advance. And then through the media said he won all the sign wars. Drives me nuts. And it sounds like it does somewhat to you as well. I would love for there to be some kind of an ordinance for what happens within the ACHD right-of-way, but I'm pretty sure that if there's another ordinance from a city or the county, that it would probably preempt ours. And that 48 hour right after the election, I consider signs nuisances, and most of the signs you see in our right-of-way, other than political, are still nuisances. I don't know how many times I can get my carpet stretched, or go to a volleyball camp, or whatever is so important that there needs to be signs everywhere. Or, buying a Christmas tree in March is, oh, wait, that thing's been sitting there for 4 months. Thank you for making that known.
And thank you for allowing me to voice my concern. On that note, I do appreciate all the hard work that is done here in our valley with the traffic, and I commend all of the employees. So thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney?
I don't know if this would be putting our I should say this is clearly putting our general counsel on the spot, but could anyone give us in a nutshell just a summary of what the laws are both state and local, with respect to political signs and
Probably can.
ACHD
Pain.
policy with regard to any such signs that may be in the right of way?
Madam President, Commissioner Steve Price, General Counsel. So remember, political signs are an exercise of your First Amendment. And under federal law, we have the ability to regulate time, place, and manner. And so you'll see a lot of ordinances like the City of Meridian. There is no particular state statute on time frames on political signs. If the commission wishes, we have ordinance authority. We can, our statutory powers is we get to establish the use of the public right of way. And so if it's the commission's will, we most certainly can pass an ordinance to impact the time of that, as long as it's not unreasonable, like 2 days before the election. But that's generally the basic law that we follow. Is we try and keep it simple to that. There is various jurisdictions that try and do that. They have some authority, but we really have the perfect authority because the signs are in the public right of way and we're the regulatory agency over the public right of way. So does that help?
Well, is it the current rule that political candidates cannot put signs in our right of way? That I had.
No.
Okay.
They have a constitutional right to put them in the right of way. What we can do is regulate time, place, and manner.
Okay. So
they can't block the vision triangle. They can't. I mean, we have a lot of safety concerns with political signs, and we have our own, and we can share that with you. Particular guides on our protocols on where to install the political signs, when. We have a 48-hour rule. We've never developed an advance rule, and we have the authority to do that. That's all I'm trying to say.
So as far as ACHD is concerned, if a candidate puts up signs now in anticipation of the May primary elections, for example, that would not violate any ACHD policy?
No.
Okay.
It's after, but like I said, if you want to do in advance of the election and create a time limit, 60 days, like the City of Meridian, you most certainly have the authority to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Steve. All right. Well, with that, the meeting is adjourned. We're going to roll into our post-commission agenda. We've got 2 work sessions. Our first one is the update on developmental review process with the capital improvement plan. Welcome, Christy.
Whoa. That's like the tax code.
Yep. Well, good afternoon, commissioners. For the record, Christy Little, Development Services Manager. This briefing is actually on impact fees. Which is our ordinance 246A, which was adopted a couple of years ago. And through our one-on-one sessions with each of you, it became pretty clear to me that I just take it for granted that I know how an impact fee is calculated. And you as the commission, every year or so, you get our overarching impact fee 101, where we tell you all about our statutes and what's in our ordinance, but we've never really talked about how an impact fee is assessed. And if you were the customer, the fee payer, this is how we would provide you with that information. So it's not a real exciting topic. It's pretty dry. So hang with me. If you love it, good. Okay. So if you have any questions as we're going through, it really is a lot of information. So just interrupt me. But before I get started, I want to introduce you to our amazing impact fee team. So you've gotten to know Megan a little bit as we're working on the CIP update. And we have Cynthia and Brianne. Just a couple of years ago, we didn't have an impact fee team. We just had a person. And these 3 have been amazing and such an asset for our customers, being the fee payers, but also the land use agencies. So aside from just assessing impact fees, this team.
Commissioner Gold, sorry to interrupt you, Christy.
Christy, just a quick question to remind folks that when we expanded the impact fee team, we also had the people who pay the impact fees. They paid for that expense, correct?
This particular team, no,
Oh, shucks.
different one. But they are invaluable. So aside from just assessing impact fees, this team is responsible for permitting the small cells, which Commissioner Goldthorpe is a fee that we recoup. Corridor preservation. So when we review development applications and we require right-of-way dedication for projects that are in our 20-year CIP, this team is purchasing that right-of-way at today's dollars in advance so that we can, try to limit the number of condemnations and purchases in the future. And then, in addition, both Cynthia and Brianne, along with another member of our team, there are software administrators for our Track It program. It's a program that we purchased about 10 years ago now, and they have to work daily to keep it running. But one of the biggest assets of this program is that we can share it with our partner agencies. And so those other agencies can collect impact fees on our behalf. We have agreements with some of those agencies. Also allows our customers to look up their projects, and they can see the staff reports, they can see the process of their plan submittal, they can see their impact fee calculation. So they have a lot on their plate, but they're a great asset to the district. So I'll start with the basics of our calculation and our formula. So the data for the calculation of the impact fee comes from two places. The ITE trip generation manual, which is why my whole team had to come because it's, as you can see, a lot of data, and the ACHD capital improvements plan. So the ITE trip generation manual it's really like a big dictionary of land uses. It's a collection of data that's obtained through individual assessments that have been collected nationwide by traffic engineers and agencies. It is the industry standard, and it provides us with the trip generation rates for specific land uses. So as you can see here, the ITE code for a single family dwelling is 210, and that comes from this data here. That's not part of the formula, that's just the definition. But we get to the PM peak hour, and so the PM peak hour rate is what we obtain from ITE for a specific land use. This is how many, this tells us how many new trips are generated per unit for a specified land use. So for residential uses, it's based on number of dwelling units. For office and commercial, it's typically based on square footages. For other random uses, movie theaters, it's based on number of seats in the theater. So this PM peak hour rate is based on that unit and how many trips are generated in the PM peak hour. Again, these are based on nationwide averages. So that's the first factor. The next factor is the new trip or the pass-by rate. So this factor is generally 1, and there are exceptions, but the great example is I'm coming to the office and I'm not making any stops. I'm leaving my house in the morning. I'm coming directly to the office. I leave the office in the afternoon and I go directly home. So I didn't have any pass-by trips, meaning I didn't stop anywhere on my way home. I didn't stop to pick up my kid at school. I didn't stop at the grocery store. But there are some really great examples for uses where there are a lot of pass-by trips. So gas stations, for example, if I need to get gas before work, I'm probably not going to drive to the gas station from home, back home, and then come to the office. I'm probably gonna find a gas station on my route, going to work or going shopping or wherever my destination is. So in those cases, that factor would be less than 1. So you're passing by something to get to your final destination. The next factor comes straight from our CIP, and that's the average trip length. So we've shown you some data lately. The average trip length has actually increased over the last couple of years, but this is our last adopted CIP and standard. So the average trip length for Ada County is 6.17 miles. And this data comes from the CIP, as you'll recall, and is based on the Compass modeling. So there are a few uses in the impact fee ACHD impact fee table where the trip length is less than the average. So this is the standard, there are exceptions. So I'll give you some easy examples. If you think about McDonald's or a fast food restaurant, I've got a McDonald's 6 blocks from my house and I've got a McDonald's a mile from my house, and I want to go get my Shamrock milkshake. I know I should walk 6 blocks, but it's raining outside and I'm going to drive. So which one am I going to drive to? I'm going to drive to the closest one. And so for certain uses where there are many in the valley, we do reduce the average trip length. Going back to the gas station example, most of us will go to the nearest gas station to wherever we're going. My mom likes to get 10 cents off at Costco, so she'll drive past 10 gas stations to get there. But for most of us, again, the average, you don't have to drive very far to get to a gas station or a fast food restaurant. So we do reduce the trip length in those calculations. And then the final factor is the network adjustment factor. So this data also comes from the CIP, and it's specific to Ada County. And this rate is applied to all land uses regardless. So this factor remains constant. So our CIP includes only ACHD arterials. So impact fees can only be assessed on vehicle miles traveled on ACHD arterials. So this factor eliminates the vehicle miles traveled on local streets, on collector streets, on any other but an arterial, and all ITD roadways. So this is a reduction in the rate. I might point out, is just a reminder, because ACHD exacts improvements with new development on local streets and collectors. We get street widening for bike lanes and parking and curb gutter and sidewalk. That's why we don't assess impact fees on anything except an arterial. And then the final factor is the VMT cost. So this comes directly from the CIP, and it's a big, long calculation that we're not going to talk about today, but it's tied again to the vehicle miles traveled based on all of the service units, based on the compilation of all of the costs of the projects in the CIP. So if you multiply all of those factors together, you get the impact fee. So in this case, this is a single family dwelling, and the impact fee is almost $3,500. So I'm going to stop there. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yes, so average trip length applies regardless of where the new development's happening, right?
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, that's
So-
correct. The average trip length for the county.
So the average trip length, so the folks who are building new facilities, say south of Cuna, way out there in the desert, there's no way you can get to them except by driving. They contribute to the average trip length, but they benefit from the average of everybody who's developed close to destinations. And the exact same type of development, let's say somebody splits a single family unit into a lot into 2 lots. So, an additional house that's going to be put on this lot next to BSU, let's say. And so the average in that case, because they're paying for the average, even though, most of those trips aren't going to happen. So we get that's what we do. We just sort of average it out countywide, and we just apply that number and multiply the cost.
Yes, Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, and that is the industry standard. And as we get through a couple of more slides, you'll see options and tools that we have for our customers.
Right, but a little guy who's just splitting a lot and building, so he has to use one of those options if they want to say no.
You'll see that they're easy.
Yeah, okay. I have a lot of questions about, it makes it very complicated. And the more complexity doesn't make it that much more objective or rational based on the uses, but that's fine. I get that the best way to make it is to add complexity.
Well, Madam President, Commissioners, I'm reminding you that this is our process and how we do it. And I'm not talking about any changes at this time. I'm just educating you on the process.
Thank you, Christy. Commissioner McKinney, did you have something?
Yeah, Christy, just to clarify, VMT cost, what does the VMT stand for?
Vehicle miles traveled, sir.
Okay, and so is that, and tell me again, I just want to make sure I'm clear where that number comes from.
Sure, it's complicated, Commissioner McKinney. The VMT cost comes from our adopted capital improvements plan. So if you take all of the projects in our capital improvements plan, you get a big old dollar amount, and you divide that by a very complicated formula of service units, and we get a cost per vehicle mile traveled. So this is a component of how many miles new development, how many miles of travel new development is creating. So with every update to our CIP, that number will change, the average trip length will change, and the network adjustment factor could change slightly.
Okay, and now does the VM, so this is essentially saying in this example, the cost per vehicle mile relative to all of the infrastructure that's in the CIP, it divides out to this number, $2,500 something per vehicle mile traveled, based upon what residents of the county are doing, how many miles they're traveling, and here's the cost of what we're building. Okay, then is that same VMT cost the basis also then for impact fees for other types of land uses? Is that the same regardless of whether it's commercial or residential or what have you? That one is constant?
That's a good question, Madam President, Commissioner McKinney. That number remains constant. It doesn't change for the land use.
Okay, and so then based on the land use, you simply have other factors that then give you your total impact fee for that particular development.
That's correct.
Okay. Are impact fees charged for a new use of an existing facility? For example, if I'm a XYZ corporation and I buy an office property for my company, but it's an existing building, am I also going to get hit with an impact fee or not?
Well, you're stealing my thunder. So
okay,
we'll
sorry.
get there in a couple of slides.
Okay.
You ready for me to move on to the next one?
Keep going, Kristen.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so step one, when we're assessing an impact fee, or if we get a phone call, what might my impact fee be when I purchase this building? So we have to determine what is the right ITE code. So as I mentioned, the ITE trip generation manual is like a big dictionary of land uses. This is just a little snippet from our impact fee table. So it's the land use, and then the adjacent number is just the ITE number for reference. I might point out on this one, and we'll get back to it, but there is in this category, you'll see ACHD 6 instead of an ITE land code. And there are times when ACHD has local data to create our own impact fee rates, and we'll get to that one. So our staff starts with utilizing the ITE manual to determine the land use classification. And then of course, there are a lot of businesses and uses that just don't fit into a straight category. So we work hard, and this is the benefit of having a team that we didn't have a couple of years ago, is that we have time to work with the fee payer to ask questions like, how many employees do you have? What are your hours of operation? We can then assess the impact fee a little closer accurately to an ITE land use classification, even though maybe at the outset it doesn't seem like it. What we can't do is manipulate those factors that we talked about unless we utilize other tools, which we'll get to. But a good example for the ITE codes is a gym. So if someone is doing just a fitness studio, maybe they're teaching yoga, they appear to be a gym, but the gym in the ITE manual is suited more towards like an Axiom type facility, where it's a large facility and lots of people coming in. But there's many land use classifications for us to go through and determine what are the best fits for that particular business. They don't have to be called a gym because that's what they're calling themselves, but what is the real classification? So now we'll get to prior use adjustments. So impact fees are assessed, Commissioner McKinney, to your question, based on new vehicular trips to the system. So if there is a business that is generating trips, it closes up shop and a similar business moves into that space, there's no impact fee due. So they get the prior use adjustment, which is what our statute talks about here, is that impact fees may not be assessed unless the number of service units increases. So impact fees stay with the parcel, not the business. So if you construct a new building and you've occupied it, you paid your impact fee, and then a couple of years down the road, you decide you need to expand and you're going to go down the street a couple of lots, the impact fee stays with the parcel, and when you move down the street, you pay another impact fee. It doesn't stay with the business. That's why with single family homes, if I build one today, I'm going to pay an impact fee. But if I decide next year that I want to build and move to another house next door, there's no impact fee to the person coming into my home because there are already trips being generated. So we've got a couple of examples current.
Question?
Yes,
Commissioner Hanson?
So, do you get a refund if there's a service fee decrease?
you do not.
Service unit decrease?
Madam
Why not?
President, Commissioner Hanson, you do not get a refund because you were not the original fee payer. So here is a very current example. So we are at the northwest corner of Orchard and Overland. This is commonly known as the Hillcrest Shopping Center. So back in the day when I was young, this portion of this shopping center was, I think it was a Grand Central, and then they converted into Fred Meyer. So in 2009, this was the configuration of the parcel. And at that time, this portion of the shopping center was demolished. So this is how the property looks today. So we have apartments coming in, and you can't see the parcel lines on this map, but there's parcel lines. So we have an apartment complex coming into this area that was previous parcel that was previously occupied by Fred Meyer, or commercial use. So I'm going to give you some made up numbers so that we're not talking specifics about this. But if the apartment complex impact fee is $200,000, and we apply the current rate today for the commercial use that was there prior, let's say it was $500,000, then the apartment complex doesn't have to pay an impact fee because they have that prior use adjustment. If, for example, it was a lesser use, so the apartments are $200,000 for their impact fee and the prior use adjustment is $100,000, then they're paying the difference between those. So in this case, the use was higher previously. The new use is a lower rate, and so they are going to get their building permit and not have to pay any impact fees. The other part about this is that when this Fred Meyer was constructed, or the shopping center, originally, it was prior to us even having an impact fee ordinance. But it's about the trips being currently generated on the system. So even though no impact fee was actually paid on this building, this new use is getting the prior use adjustment. Same goes, Commissioner Hanson, if you have a single family dwelling that you were talking about and you want to make it into a duplex or a fourplex, you're getting the adjustment for the single family dwelling impact fee, even though one was probably never paid in the first place. This next one has also been something in the last year. We had a coffee shop, Commissioner Pickering, you're familiar, out on U-Stick near Cole. This is a strip mall. This coffee shop isn't like a major retailer. There's no drive-through, and they were proposing to occupy a small space within the strip mall. The strip mall, again, is old and never paid an impact fee, but the coffee shop received the prior use adjustment because they're not generating new trips beyond the prior use. So in this case, there was no impact fee due. Now I'll pause here for questions before I move on to individual assessments. All right. So our ordinance allows for individual assessments to be conducted if an owner or fee payer feels that the impact fee assessment, even after all the work with our staff, if they feel that it's not right, or just doesn't fit their specific use, their specific location, whatever factor it is, then our ordinance allows for the individual assessment. So we have a no-cost application that can be filled out when the fee is paid, and we work with our fee payers so they understand this information. And so basically this form that they fill out is insurance for them, and it says that within 2 years they have the opportunity, not requirement, but the opportunity to submit an individual assessment to ACHD. If that individual assessment shows that the averages were not correct, then they get maybe their impact fee is lower, then we issue them a refund for that difference. The numbers here, as you can see, over the last 5 years, we've had about 30 individual assessment applications. So that's people just saying, we reserve the right. We're not sure that your impact fee is a good fit for us, and we reserve the right to come back and do a little more evaluation. So of those 30, we've got less than 10 that have actually submitted data to us to complete their individual assessment. It is possible that more were completed and not submitted. I know in years past, there have been certain land uses where people did an individual assessment and found that the impact fee should have been higher than the averages. And so obviously they're not going to submit those to us because they're going to be happy with what they paid. So an individual assessment for large uses, people typically will hire someone to obtain the data for them. For smaller uses, we allow the business owner or fee payer to work with us and gather the data. So the assessment is generally done by surveying customers. If we're just talking about a small business, surveying customers, employees, and maybe deliveries. So we want to know, where did the trip originate, so that we can determine trip length. So there are some uses that people don't have to travel very far. It's very specific to a neighborhood use. So we can obtain that data. And it's just surveying and asking people questions. Did they stop here on their way to somewhere else? Those are those pass-by trips that I talked about. Which roads did they travel on? Maybe this business is located on an ITD road off of a highway. And then finally, just counting the number of trips. So depending on the use, sometimes all of the factors are evaluated, and sometimes just one or two of the factors is evaluated. So if the data shows that after they've accumulated all of the data, if it shows that the factors need to be adjusted for the specific use, specific location, then we adjust their fee accordingly. Typically we want, if it's a large office building, we want it to be 85% occupied before they start getting data, so that we can be sure that it's valid data. But for smaller uses, a lot of small retail uses, it's interviewing people for a couple of weeks. If they only get a couple of customers in a day, it takes a little bit of time to get that data, but it's also very easy. If we get enough data to see a local trend, if we've had very few because we have very few individual assessments, but I showed you back on the earlier slide that under self-storage, ACHD has their own code. So about 8 years ago, we saw the self-storage boom in Meridian around the new subdivisions. And we had several people submit individual assessments to us, and it demonstrated that the trip length was much less than our county average, and also that the number of trips was much less than the average in the ITE manual. And so because we had enough cumulative data, we were able to add that specific rate to our fee table. We've only had a handful of those in the last 20 years. So I guess I would just point out that, I mean, based on the number of individual assessments that we actually receive and we actually issue refunds on, I think it's a pretty good indicator of our program and our fees, to be quite honest.
Christy, question on the individual assessments. So you said only a handful have actually come through. Do you know off the top of your head what were those instances?
We've
What
had,
types of
I mean, over the
uses?
years, we've had a lot. I can think of, dating myself, but physical therapists, for example, used to be included as medical office. Medical office has a very high impact fee rate because it's a lot of trips, and people are going to travel however far they need to get to their medical appointment. Physical therapists, we found, had a smaller patient load and just a different way of doing business and smaller facilities. So we had enough individual assessments submitted and we gathered data. So that one we created. We've had a small recently, and over the years, a couple of small retail shops in the city of Eagle that are like higher end boutique shops, where they demonstrated that the standard retail shopping rate based on number of trips was actually less than what their boutique shop was generating. But in some of those instances, we also found that people were traveling further to get to that niche use. A cabinet, we had a large cabinet maker, so their facility was very large and their number of employees was much fewer than the average for like a light industrial use. So we've received them for a large number. I know one time we had one for an apartment building downtown. I don't think it actually showed much of an adjustment at all. But so over the years, we've had a wide variety that have actually followed through and we've completed the review on.
Commissioner Hanson?
Yeah, so Madam President and fellow commissioners, I think the fact that it's the applicant's burden to front the cost and then do an individual assessment and then may or may not get a refund indicates that that should not be interpreted, I don't think, to say that, well, it's all perfectly fair. Because if it were the reverse and they say, if we said, okay, on the front end, do an individual assessment and then you pay if, in fact, it's determined that you're not entitled to that individual assessment, then you pay that extra bit at the end. The cost for developments is the front end cost. Can they get financing? How do they pencil it out? What are the margins? And so once they've finished doing all of that and they know they have to front it, no bank is going to say, you know, I can't guarantee that you're actually going to get this back. So exclude those costs. You're going to have to just swallow that. And then once it's all done, where does that money go? You know, eventually. So I think it's critical that we recognize this is one of the reasons why it's so much more likely in the denser urban core to see high-end residential, because they know the income's going to be coming in, and why it's so challenging for anyone to try and get affordable residences who are on transit systems and who are, you know, there's a much smaller trip generation and distance, but they still have to front the cost up front in order to get their financing. So I think the conclusion that the system is fair because of the few applications for individual assessment is flawed, unless we do the reverse. And maybe that's the next step we should do. We should do the reverse. Front, if they apply individual assessment, they automatically get the individual assessment. And then the burden is on the agency to assume that cost. And then if they don't meet, if they can't prove it, then they pay it, but they pay it later on.
Can you keep going, Christy?
Madam President, I might just, for clarification, Commissioner Hanson, I think what I left out was compared to the number of individual assessments that I have seen in my time here at the Highway District, like between 2006 and 2015, the number of individual assessments we have received has declined significantly.
Keep going, Christy.
All right. So that is all I had for you today, and I'll stand for any questions.
Madam
Okay,
President?
Commissioner McKinney.
Yeah, I do have, Christy, just one additional question. In addition to the individual assessment, that's an after-the-fact, sort of backward-looking approach. Is there any mechanism by which and I've had business owners ask me questions about impact fees and so on. Is there any mechanism by which a business owner, when faced with an impact fee that's being assessed by ACHD, could, for example, contest that in any way?
Yeah. Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, thank you. It brings up 2 points for me. One is, I didn't want to get into the weeds, but we do have an individual assessment agreement. So that business that we talked about that you're gonna buy, maybe you're moving your business to a new facility. We can work with you to get some of that data up front. So if you say, look, we don't generate the number of trips that the ITE manual says, we can work with you on that individual assessment up front, and then you pay a reduced impact fee, maybe not the full reduction of the impact fee, and then you come back and you show us later that, yep, those really are the true reductions. So we do have a mechanism that allows us to, where the data is available, to enter into some of those agreements so that you're not paying the full impact fee up front. If there's reliable data that shows us that maybe it really is different. But the end all of the appeal is the ordinance does allow for appeals. None of you have ever heard an impact fee appeal. To appeal an impact fee per our ordinance, you have to demonstrate that staff erred in the calculation. So sometimes we'll miss a prior use adjustment, like maybe we didn't know the specific use, maybe we didn't know something, and the fee payer will say, hey, I don't think this is right, or are you sure this is the right classification? We'll work on it some more. So they have to demonstrate that we erred in the calculation. But our team works very hard, as I said, to make sure that we get the right fit. And I think that, is also a good indication that we're working hard.
Yeah, just to follow up, in that case, if a business owner, that's being assessed with an impact fee, has concerns about it, are they going to need to, say, go hire a traffic engineer to contest it? Or is it the kind of thing that a person on their own can say, hey, I'm not sure that this classification is right, or what have you?
Yeah. Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, absolutely, they don't need to go hire a professional. It's hard to speak to because they deal with this on a regular basis.
Right.
But the only time we need somebody to hire a professional is for a larger individual assessment.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yeah, I have an example of that. It's several years old, but I once received a call from a mayor of a city saying that a certain person was just putting one extra desk in their place of business. It was a medical facility, and they were getting billed for another $13,000 impact fee. And so I made a couple of calls and told the business manager to go back in and see you guys. And he shot himself in the foot. He just brought a check along with him. And it turns out we really didn't have to assess much of an impact fee at all, but he went ahead and paid it. But so that was crazy situation, but they do have a great amount of latitude for that.
Commissioner Hanson.
So, Madam President and Christy, so how do we work hand in glove with the other cities? Because they all have their impact fees because when a new development happens, there's city services that have to be provided to them. They have their own impact fee. They have their own improvements plan that they have to finance with those fees. So someone comes in each of the 6 cities and comes in, how do they, or is it completely separate? How do they work so that they can, it's like I have to deal with ACHD and I have to now deal with this. And even the county, does the county also because county covers countywide, sort of 3 impact fee areas. How does it work?
Sure. Well, with Boise City is the example, because of the work of our team and our Track It software and capabilities, and educating the city staff how to use those. If I'm building a home or an office use in the city of Boise and everything's ready to go, I just need to pay my impact fees before the city will issue a building permit. I go to City Hall and I can pay the city's impact fees and I can pay ACHD impact fees. We've integrated that information and allowed the city to access that information. And it's been a great benefit to our customers that they don't have to make that duplicate stop if they don't have to.
Right.
We also allow payments over the phone now. And so our system has really evolved over the last decade.
So my question not is as to the, once they're ready to have to pay it and how efficient is that, it's the front end. Because each of the 6 cities has a different impact fee ordinance. And so how do they work together in determining what the various uses are? Do they use the same obviously it's not trip generation, it's like police generation and sewer and water generation and various other city services.
Sure.
So you've got 6 different versions around, or is there a 7th? Because I don't know, does the county have a impact fee ordinance? No. Okay, so there's 6 versions that we have to deal with, and then everybody has to deal with those 2. There's no other governing entity that imposes impact fees, right?
That's a really good question, Madam President, Commissioner Hanson. So if we get a new development application in for a light industrial use, and that's how the city has classified it based on their zoning code. If we apply the light industrial code from ITE, it might not be real specific to the user. And so we are very different from the cities. City of Boise, your impact fee is based on are you a residential use? Are you a commercial use? Are you an industrial use? They don't go into all of the different land uses. So for example, if they determine that this new building is an industrial land use code from ITE, we can fine tune it much further. So it doesn't, our impact fees are totally unrelated in how we assess them because each city's code is different. For example, if the city has a park impact fee, and if it's a residential use, it's going to be this. Our residential uses are broken down into single family, into duplex, into apartment high rise, into multiple categories. And so ours are much more finely tuned than the cities. So there really is I'm not sure what you're getting at there, but there's no overlap in how we do it.
Yeah, but there are 6 different versions out there, and the property owner has to deal with these 2 together, even though they're separate assumptions that are built within them in order to do that.
That's correct.
And I think that's a critical component of how we view ours, because it's pertinent to that land in that if it's in Garden City, it's in Garden City. It's not going to move around. And so the assumptions built into Garden City's impact fee ordinance are different than the ones built into our county-wide ordinance, even though the property is and the impact fee we're imposing is pertinent to that piece of land in Garden City. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies, for all that you do. All right. Director, did you want to finish your director's report really quickly? And then after he's done, I think a 10-minute break in between that and our executive session, if that's okay. Yeah, you've got 3 minutes, Director. That's what Commissioner Goldthorpe said.
I'll take 2. Madam President, Commissioners, again, thank you for the opportunity. I'd like to let you know that the governor allowed the ITD bill to go through unsigned, so it's now law. Excuse me. Commissioners, I would invite all of you today, tomorrow, to attend the maintenance rodeo operations that are going on the fairgrounds. We were out there earlier this morning. They're doing a tremendous job. I think you'll get a great I know you already have a great appreciation, but a more insightful appreciation of the precision and the expertise our maintainers have. You can play on some of the equipment if you're so inclined. We have instructors out there and a lot of insurance for you all. I'd like to remind the commissioners that tomorrow we are hosting 2 of the Boise City Council members for ACHE 101. Aaron will be making the presentation. I will be at the maintenance rodeo for the awards ceremony at 1 o'clock. And then just a final note, last night I had the opportunity to attend BSU's philanthropic thank you event up at the Stucco Sky Center. I know we see a lot of media results about how bad education is and how bad things are going and how things are going to the toilet left and right. Well, after meeting several of those amazing students last night, I will assure all of you that at least for the University of Boise State, we are in very good hands. There's a young lady out there that has 7 scholarships in engineering and in environmental engineering. She has set up a protocol on how to determine how to maximize sunlight energy first out here. She's developed a process where she actually can intensify the sun's energy 700 times from sunlight here, and she's being courted by a lot of folks. I did offer her the opportunity to come join the Ada County Highway District as an intern now in both engineering. I haven't told that to HR yet, but anyway, engineering and in environmental folks. But Janice and I were overwhelmed and so impressed by the caliber of the students that were in that event. I will also let you know that they're getting closer to their goal of $500 million in endowment operations. And so, as I shared with Commissioner Gold as I was going there yesterday on a phone call, our wallets were a little lighter as we left the building, so I'm taking up collections later on today. But anyway, I just want to leave you with that thought. Tremendous students, tremendous educational opportunities, tremendous environment at Boise State. I'm sure the other colleges too. But anyway, that's the report, and I'll stand for any questions you might have.
Go Broncos.
You know, I go to the DECA competition every year, where kids from high schools make lots of presentations of a business nature, and it's very competitive, and I walk away with the exact same feeling every year.
Well, I'm hoping that young lady will take me up on my offer to become an intern here at the Ada County Highway District. She has another year to go, and she's already achieved, I don't even know what her degree is anymore. It's like 55 letters long.
There's a patent attorney for that, if she wants to develop it.
I noticed him going like this, you know, and such. So, commissioners, again, I would invite you all to stop by the maintenance. They're practicing today. The competition is tomorrow. Award ceremonies at 1 o'clock. So it's a great opportunity.
Thanks, Director.
Yep.
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute recess, and then I'll meet you all in the back for our executive session. Thank you.